royal scribe." He breathed in deeply, seeming to grow taller by several inches. "I am the royal architect. I am working on the commission of my king and queen. That commission has significance beyond these four walls, beyond the royal city of Archaeologist, beyond this great kingdom of Egypt, and yes, indeed, beyond even that of your beloved Suwa daughter of Keala. And yet even I do not demand to see them. You arrived without fanfare, but nonetheless they know that you are here. If your presence was desired or even required, they would already have sent for you by now." They shifted uneasily on their feet at this statement from the diminutive scribe, royal architect, who then softened and gave them an insincere smile. "Mahu!" he shouted unexpectedly at the top of his voice. The messengers looked towards the door. "But of course," he continued sympathetically, the wheeze returning to his voice, "I am sure you will be welcome to stay and enjoy the evening's festivities." At that moment, Mahu, chief of police, burst in with 2 foot soldiers, and after a short scuffle, the door closed behind them, leaving the scribe alone with his work. He uncovered his papyrus and looked at it uneasily, his shoulders sinking as the adrenaline in him died. There it was, his treason, his betrayal in black and red ink, as clear as obsidian and blood on sand. But it had to be that way. He couldn't let this secret, this terrifying truth, be buried in the desert for all eternity. Carefully he rolled the papyrus up and slotted it into a wooden tube, which he then capped with canvas bound with twine. When his tasks in Archaeologist were complete, he would travel south, away from this crumbling kingdom. He didn't yet know what to do with his treacherous document, but instinct had taken him this far and would lead the way again, he was sure. The next morning, just before the sun rose above the hills to the east and enveloped the regal capital of Archaeologist with its warm embrace, the scribe greeted Queen Nefertiti on a cliff top a mile to the north of the city. The king, Akhenaten, was already too weak to make such trips, and she had now, albeit unofficially, assumed almost full control. In her absence from the palace, the king usually busied himself playing as best he could with his son, the disobedient and contrary Tutankhaten. The child was not Nefertiti's, and even though he was barely 4 years old, she could sense where his defiant nature would ultimately lead. Akhenaten would not last much longer, and on her own she didn't know for how long she could retain control of the already fragmenting kingdoms of Egypt. The scribe directed her to a hole in the ground, hidden inside a large tent. Steps hewn into the bedrock descended into darkness. How safe will it be? She was all too aware of the grave robbing that took place in the kingdom, sometimes mere months after a tomb had been sealed. "The most secure there has ever been," he said proudly. "The workers are brought here blindfolded. On the surface they work only at night, and underground none have visibility of the overall plan. When we finish, only I shall know where and how to enter, and what is inside." She looked him up and down. This small man and old friend had already devoted most of his working life to this task, and she held him in the highest regard. That he was the only one, apart from the king and queen, to know the full details of what lay beneath their feet was a great comfort to her. He shuffled over to his portable workbench and picked up a small wooden tablet and a lump of charcoal with his right hand, an oil lamp with his left. Together they went down the steps, the empty tent above them beginning to fill with the golden hue of dawn. "Sutn Anu," Nefertiti's soft voice barely echoed in the narrow tunnel. "What you have built here is important, but what it conceals even more so." She stopped before the end of the steps and turned to him. For a moment he looked her in the eyes, but quickly looked down. "No," she continued, lifting his chin with her hand, "I want you..."